everyone. Welcome to Talking Tech with Legal IT Insider. I'm your host, Caroline Hill, the editor of Legal IT Insider, and we're here today to talk about data to an extent. Data scarcity to data abundance is our webinar. So we're looking at, is ambient AI redefining the legal workplace? So for years, we've operated in an environment of data scarcity. At least that data is locked up across various systems which are not connected and which are really difficult to extract information from. Certainly difficult to do that at scale. But we're entering an era where legal teams can finally generate, surface and act on that information. And joining me today, so anyone who's joined our webinars before will recognise her. So Jennifer Poon, who has nearly a decade of legal experience. She's currently Legal AI Solutions Director at Net Documents. Before that, she was Litigation Counsel at Aiken Gump. And before that, a Corporate Associate at Simpson Thatcher. Hi, Jen.
Hi. That resume makes me sound super old now. Great to be here.
Thanks so much for coming. So we're going to talk about a bit of the background of where we find ourselves in terms of that change from scarcity to abundance. We're going to be looking at your AI profiling tool. Jen's going to give us a demo of AI profiling, how it works, and how it works at scale, which I think is the really big change, obviously. We're going to ask if you please jump in with questions. We love our webinars to be interactive. And we're then going to be looking at semantic search, which has been a long time we've been trailing it for a long time. There'll be some element of a live demo, there'll be some element of a video, but we're going to be talking about what's new, what's being used, and some sort of key topic areas that I hear a lot. Jen gets to hear a lot about your questions around semantic search, including things like reliability, accuracy, and what it means in an MCP world. So we're going to be coming on to all of that. And if you've got questions, as I said, please jump in, enable your chat, just chat to one another if you want to. We don't care, do we, Jen?
We won't know. So great to be here.
So
It sounds like a dry topic, but it actually is, I think, super important right now as like everybody kind of gets on the AI game.
Do you think it's dry? Does it feel like people get the significant? I don't mean to sound patronizing, and I'm not a techie, as you know. Primarily, I used to be a lawyer, so I'm not. If that comes across wrong, I don't mean it to. But do you think people get how important it is?
I think some people do, the ones that are interested, obviously, and read about this stuff or in the industry do. But I think for normal people right now, they're using like ChatGPT for like emotional support or something. I don't think it's quite clicked that it's going to transform their workplaces quite yet. But you know, me too. I don't come from a tech background, but as a lawyer, now that I see what it can do, I'm like, wow, this is truly transformative stuff and stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think about, especially when you're talking about data abundance. Like, what does that mean? I think about it in two ways. Number one, you're actually able to generate information that you weren't before, so that's net new. For example, you have a set of like 120 million documents on your DMS. Now you can use AI to extract information about that you didn't used to have. So, for example, you can now extract, oh, which agreements did I agree to for this return rate, and I'll be able to give you all of that. Can you give me all the different ways that a material adverse effect clause has been drafted? It'll give you that. So that's net new, that's generative AI. But it's also being able to search for information that already exists. So, for example, finding the right precedent, finding the right clause within those 120 million documents. AI can also help you do that. So that's what I'm really thinking about when I talk about data abundance. And then ambient AI is just the fact that all of this is going to become very accessible at our fingertips, so much that we won't even notice it's in the background anymore. Kind of like I always just like to use the example of Google. You can just type in a search now and it'll give you an answer. That's it's kind of so part and parcel of our experience now that I think sooner or later we're not even going to really, now we flag it, oh, this is AI, but we won't kind of do that in the future.
Yeah, it's been so different, hasn't it? So we've had Google, where you don't have to know what you're searching for, really. You just put in a concept, or you don't remember exactly what it is that you're trying to find, and you put something in and you'll be able to find it because it's semantic. Whereas with the DMS, for years we've heard about partners or anybody putting in a search. They know that they've got that precedent out there, but they just don't know the exact words. They can't remember the client necessarily, but they know that it covered this exact point. And I guess what's so key now is that they will be able to just put in the same ways we would with Google. They'll start to be able to put in the sort of the concepts or things that they remember, and that should be maybe not always, but like sufficient in order to discover it, which is really, I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's a huge unlock. Like you said, there's a lot of situations where you're looking for that needle in the haystack, where you need an answer or where you don't want to reinvent the wheel. And that's like the second part of what I was talking about earlier, is being able to use natural language queries in order to surface those results and search by concept versus keyword. So you don't have to remember the exact phrase that would get you to that search result. That's, yeah, it's going to be really cool.
It's so cool. I think it's really exciting. In order to, so we're going to talk about profiling first, which is I mean, to what extent? So when you've got semantic search, right? So we're in an age where everybody thinks, oh, this is just going to, we've got AI. I can just search for stuff and I'll find it, and we don't need to do any work, which obviously is not correct, right? Because, well, I mean, would you agree? It's not correct, or certainly in order to be able to really make sense and really start to do some analytics and really find what you need to do, you need to do the work still on the data. It's not like you've got this vast DMS pool of data that suddenly you're just going to be able to do amazing things with without doing the profiling, without doing the creating better metadata that actually makes sense and is consistent across that whole DMS.
Right. What you're talking about, as it relates to us, the DMS, is AI profiling of your documents. So that's using AI to extract the terms that you're interested in, or different data points about documents in the litigation context across your entire swath of documents, be that 120 million, 100 million, 500 million. And we think of that as the first step in making your DMS AI ready or agent ready, because all these precedents are sitting on your DMS, but you are going to want to use different workflow automations and tools to connect to them, surface the right precedents, and then run those workflows. So having a fully hydrated DMS in terms of the profile attributes for each document firstly helps you optimize that search experience for when those agents are searching your DMS for the right document. And then secondly, just on a day-to-day basis, is extremely useful for the lawyer, because at a glance, it's like looking at an Excel spreadsheet. You have, if you're saying doing a due diligence exercise, you have these schedules in front of you. You pull the involved in each of those contracts. You can pull the parties, the entities involved, whether it's been signed or not. You can really customize it and configure it. But before, perhaps we were using humans, paralegal or the associates, we were relying on them to manually profile each document. As every person who's worked in a law firm knows, that never gets done. A lot of people are just like miscellaneous and they move on. So when you're actually trying to find a precedent, it's hard. But when you profile it, even without touching the semantic search part, you can then use those data points to filter, even when you're just doing a straight up keyword-based lexical search. So there's just many ways in which this is an extremely powerful technology, and it's something that all of our major strategic customers are interested in and actively undergoing projects for. Also, you can use it when you've profiled a document. Say you want everything over $1 million in value to trigger review. You can actually key it that way, where it then runs it against a playbook and automatically generates a markup. It just serves as that foundational layer for almost everything else you're going to do with AI on your DMS with your precedents.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I know you're going to come on to demo it. So it was interesting hearing Jill Shornack at your user conference talking about how what's changed recently in terms of profiling is actually she was talking about semantic search, thinking about but it applies to profiling as well. So what's changed with both profiling and search is the sheer scale of it. So you could upload your documents. You could, I don't know, I guess you could do a certain amount with them metadata on a small scale, but what this is you can do this in the background across, I guess, in theory, your entire DMS. I mean, it's going to take time, right? Though that it's not a sort of overnight exercise. I guess these are still big projects, really, but the fact is that you can now do it at scale.
Yes, you can now do it at scale. And yes, Jill, the great Jill Shornack, had like some nice visuals to demonstrate like really how many documents we're talking about when it comes to law firms and the amount of documents on their DMS. But yeah, I think she said like 300 million in total across all our customers. Don't quote me on that, but it's a massive amount. But we've worked really hard on the back end to make sure that we even have the capacity to do that. So that involved NetDocs migrating to AWS, for example, for increased cloud storage capacity. It's something that NetDocs has been running at for 3 years, both figuring out how to do it in a cost-effective manner, really feasibly. It's not even cost-effective to be able to even do that and make it commercially viable was one challenge. And then also finding the capacity to do it at scale. So yeah.
And it was great to meet AWS at your conference as well. That was kind of fun. And she what, sorry?
This is what I was going to say. Jill was the one that came up with the term, or like taught it to the rest of us, ambient AI. And I was like, I love that. I do think that's going to be the state of the world. Yes.
That is
just
a great
want to give her a shout out. Yeah.
Do you want to show it to us? Because I mean, I'm going to have questions. I'm sure other people will. So just, I see that there's people that have just joined. So we're going to demo AI profiling. We've got some questions. I've got some questions. If you've got questions, jump in. And then we're going to come on to semantic search a little bit in a little while. So, but do you want to show us AI profiling?
Absolutely. Just let me set it up to make sure it's all good. So I'm going to be switching between my screens for a lot, or different windows for a lot of this. Oh man, I need to get a way to turn off my...
In the meantime, while you're doing that, can everyone admire that we coordinated on our outfits? Like...
Yeah, we're very complimentary.
We're very complimentary, which was not planned, I have to tell you.
So can everyone see that?
Yeah.
So here you have your typical DMS, and this represents like the nightmare scenario of managers where people are not even naming their files properly. They're just sort of random. You've been like really busy, so you've like saved a bunch of random stuff onto your DMS. And the titles might look something like this. Hopefully not this bad, but feasible. Have all these fields here that are configurable, but that you might want to know about these agreements. Payment terms, renewal terms, governing law, expiration date, effective date. But you don't know, right? This is where AI can come in and it can extract those for you at scale. And we have quite like a good sample of how many documents are here. So this is a process that I'm going to trigger manually because it makes for a better demo. But really, they're meant to be in the background. So you can set them on a schedule. You can do it, whenever you have a lateral coming to the firm with like 10,000 files that you need to categorize and organize. And I'm going to go ahead and trigger that process. And what you'll see, I'm going to refresh this. You should start to see this begin to populate. Keep on refreshing. There you go. So it's starting to fill out. And not only that, if you'll notice, the titles of the documents have also been renamed according to a consistent convention. So when we did this at our customer conference, Inspire, this literally got gasps and applause in the room because people could just see so much value out of this alone and cleaning up their files. But now I'm going to run it one more time just in case. It's all filled out, and as you saw, it was a matter of like under 2 minutes. It's all been filled out. So again, to recap, you have the consistent name convention with the date, the title of the agreement, and the parties involved. In this case, it's all quantum law, or the vendor is. Um, and you have the effective date, the expiration date, governing law, renewal terms, payment terms, and say, this is what I meant. If the renewal term is, say, over a year, you could add another column that says needs review, right? And the attorney could easily click into that. Or in the future, because this hooks up with our assistant, that's that button over here, you can query these further. You'll also be able to automatically trigger workflows in the background in a future state of pre-built apps that you put together. For example, an issues list app, if it says it's over a year, it'll automatically run and spit out an issues list for you. And imagine you're also sort of looking for the right precedent in a workspace like this. When you do your search, you can then filter using the effective date, the expiration date, the governing law to find the right precedent that you want. So this is all before even search is live. This is just, pure lexical search. It's already optimized your experience. Now, when you add semantic search into the mix, which is when you are able to search based on concept versus keywords, it will be a lot faster and a lot more accurate because you've already kind of created these tags for these documents. So when the agent is going through and looking for things, it can use these as touch bases to make sure that it's finding the right precedent for you. Mm-hmm. So we find that super exciting.
Really? So, and can you, I forget the word you use, but and people can come up with their own. So obviously you've got dates, governing law, etc., which are pretty obvious,
yeah,
and useful. But you could come up with whatever's useful that would be play out across some or most of your documents.
Yes. So we have unlimited metadata and dynamic profiling. Mm-hmm. So for if these are corporate documents, but if it were a brief or a litigation document, it would automatically have different profile attributes depending on what kind of taxonomy you've decided on. So our customers are actually a mix. I was trying to get to the profile attribute. Here you go. I'm not a professional demoer, Caroline, so this is just the lawyer walking you through, but here.
Great. We love this.
You can see here, look how detailed it can be. So for payment terms, it's $50,000 up front plus 2% annual revenue, fees due within 30 days. And then you can have this summary. And I just found out a couple of days ago that you not only can search just using lexical search for in the text of the document, you can also search the text of the summary. And now this is that first part that I talked about, net new information. This summary was generated by AI. You can now search the summary, the words within the summary as well. So, the AI might kind of, in the word of the document, it might not specifically say, hey, I am a acquisition agreement in the social media space. But in the description, it might say, this is an agreement that involves a company in the social media space. And you'd be able to now search that summary for that information.
In terms of accuracy, so for example, effective date, just I have so many thoughts about this. Like, it's better than nothing, but then are there risks that this is wrong and that would cause issues if you're using it? Because obviously if you've got nothing, then that's just completely unhelpful, but if you've got something that's wrong, I guess that has potential implications if you're using it for analytics. Is it accurate? Do people need to double check it, because that's an awful lot of information to double check? You're on mute, Jen.
So you always should go through a validation exercise, and that's part of the implementation process for these AI profiling projects. But I think it's much more accurate than a person in the state that it's in. We're using, I believe, 5.1 on the back end for our apps now, or 5, one of those. But for like pretty simple, straightforward stuff like the effective date, governing law, all that, it tends to be like really accurate. If you're asking for more complicated things that involve cross-references between documents, that's where you can run into trouble. So just kind of, you have to be a little bit intentional about what you're asking the AI to pull. But if you've seen the models today, a lot of times they're more accurate than even a person. They don't get tired. They're pretty consistent. And so I would say, like, even conservatively, I think it's like 80, 85% accurate. What I've personally seen anecdotally, it's like 95% accurate. So these metadata profile fields, you never want to make them too complicated. Like if the prompt is more than like 3 paragraphs long, I'd say that's probably too far. What triggers this on the back end for each point of extraction is a prompt, right? So you can kind of get a feeling for if it's pretty straightforward prompt, it's probably going to be pretty reliable. If it's more complicated, then you have to do a little more legwork in terms of making sure that it's working. Another note on this too is that, a question we commonly get at this point is, how did you come up with these attributes? Like, well, how did you know these are the terms that you want to extract? And the answer is, it's complicated. NetDocuments has its own taxonomy created by our in-house experts who have, I think, made a cross between like Folio and Sally for it. Because you don't want it to be too unwieldy and like go down this rabbit hole of like endless attributes to profile, but it needs to be useful anyways. So we sort of like tried to strike a balance in that. And for some of our customers, that's good enough. They just plug and play and go with the taxonomy, and then they tweak it a bit. But if you have spent years, or your knowledge management team has, curating a bespoke taxonomy for your firm, you can also configure it to adhere to that taxonomy.
Suddenly something popped into my head.
Yeah, a lot to discuss.
On the subject of Sally, okay, this could be really dumb, but it just literally suddenly, I mean, this could be exciting. So say you use the standardized metadata, you try and create some standardization in terms of the metadata that you're applying, and then when we start going down the track with talking about agentic AI, does that have benefits? Like, so if across the board, like we're always starting to move towards this standardized metadata, which obviously I mean, this is maybe a conversation for another time actually, but presumably that might be a benefit, might know. This is exciting, and I can see why you would go for effective date. This totally makes sense, right? These are sort of pretty obvious points.
No, I think people did have interoperability in mind when they came up with Sally, because it's supposed to be sort of a uniform standard that everybody can draw from. So when you have like cross-platform experiences and you're asking an agent from one vendor to play with, the agent from another vendor, they have a common language. I think that was exactly the point. But, there's always going to be variability among the needs of the firms and the different customers. So Sally, I think, is a very useful starting point. And there will always be some commonalities that will allow and facilitate that interoperability. So you're right. I think that was the intention behind it.
And in terms of firms or organizations, how they're approaching this. So there's this expression, we may have talked about it, about eating the elephant in chunks, which is really disgusting. I think we've brought this up before. But like, is there like it's still quite early days, but is there like a best practice, the way that people are approaching this? Is there a way that you've seen people approaching this that you think actually that's a really great idea, or in terms of how they're going about it from a process point of view?
Yeah. I think we're the only DMS that is doing this right now. So, I can only speak to the standardization that we've sort of landed upon with our customers, but we use the crawl, walk, run model. So we're very cautious because you don't want to disturb any existing profiling exercise that you've already done at your firm manually through staff attorneys or whatever. So typically we will, land on a group of documents that could use with some AI profiling. For example, with docketing folders where you're just directly pulling files from the government website, or for like certain collections of documents like limited partnerships agreements or what have you. And you're like, we really don't know much about these documents. We really want to pull all that information from it. We then transfer it to a test cabinet and then, decide on the taxonomy, whether you want to use ours or directly Sally or your own bespoke one. We press play. Usually it's like 10,000 documents that we'll run this test on. And then we'll see the results and we'll be like, this prompt needs to be refined. It's not pulling exactly the information we want with the degree of accuracy we need. And then you just iterate until you're satisfied. And then you can actually use that and then run it against the real documents on your DMS. You also want to be cognizant to preserve whatever attributes are already there. Like I said, because you might have profiled it before, we have it now so that the AI extracted attributes can be separate. Like, so they're not going to overwrite the profile attributes that are already there. And it'll be very clear which ones are extracted by AI in case somebody needs to go in there and validate them. So once you've done that exercise, then you can move on to different workspaces with different sets of documents and then different practice groups with the idea that you're going to have firms corpus of documents on their DMS profiled. Although you might decide, we don't really need it for this set, we don't need it for that set, but the majority hopefully would be profiled. And that is sort of like the end goal, the state of nirvana for her DMS.
Are you dealing with the IT folks? Is it IT directors, IT people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much a cross-functional exercise. Usually the KM people, if they're there, the innovation leads, you need sign-off from senior management of the firm, and then you need the involvement of lawyers. So whether that be associates or partners who are interested in this. And then, NetDocs also has built out a professional services team that can help you think through your taxonomy and to kind of coordinate and help you with the project as it goes along. So quite big undertakings, but as we said, we already have a number of big customers that are running at this and are super excited to see the results.
Of course. And just real quick, before we move on to semantic, on the title, are they able to keep when you change the naming convention? I know that this came up at the conference and it was an interesting question, and I don't recall the answer, to be frank. But like, so like people might remember that they gave something a stupid name, like I do this all the time. Like, I don't remember my stupid name. Is there a way to keep reference to that, or no? You just have your naming convention for the new titles, and it makes a lot more sense, and then therefore it's easy to find. Or is there a way to?
Completely configurable. So your old name, you can either keep it and then have the retitled name as a profile attribute, or you can do it vice versa. You can have the retitled name be the file name and then have the old name as a profile attribute so that it's still searchable. Right. So yeah, people get nervous, but like you can also just not do it at all. Like you don't have to retitle any of the documents. You can just leave it as
it makes sense to do it. But it does make sense. But I got the point about what you call that's how you find stuff. I guess in theory, once you get used to this, it'll be so much easier to discover anyway, right? Like you won't have to go through and find your stupid name that you gave it, because it's really difficult to find it otherwise.
You're like, this is my secret file that I use all the time. I'm going to title it pterodactyl so that I can consistently pull it up each time. Yeah.
I used to be really bad. I've got better as I've got older. And I realized I spent so long looking for stuff. I was just like, my OneDrive used to be just like this giant pit of unorganized stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, one thing we're also thinking about too that we get quite a lot, two things. One is like, what if we have customers who say, don't use AI on any of our stuff? So we've actually rolled out a DLP policy that you can implement that doesn't allow you to send any files that are associated with that DLP to be accessed through the assistant or any other apps that might kind of call into it through like an MCP layer. The one distinction I think is that you'll still be able to search for those files and locate them using semantic search, because really those files are just being indexed. They're not being sent to a large language model. So yeah, a fine distinction. And then I think I was going to say something. Yeah.
You were going to say something?
There was a second point I was going to make, but it's gone now into the ether.
Gone now. Sorry. That was a good first point there. That's really important, right? Because it holds firms back, because the difficulty of the current position with clients, some of them still being very nervous about AI being applied to their matters, and it can be, unless you've got that degree of sophistication of being able to partition their documents, it's quite difficult to move ahead and feel confident that you're able to sort of comply with your engagement letter, etc.
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely. So yeah, we're that one that just kind of came live. So but our customers were asking for it, so it's there now.
Okay, awesome. So semantic. So that we've been talking about not talking about this for a while.
I know.
And it was really exciting to see at the conference it demoed live in anger for the first time. And I know this is you already talked about this a little bit actually, about how complex it is and how you've been working with AWS for 3 years. I met AWS whilst I was at the conference.
Oh, wow.
And I know that it's something that initially maybe they were within the parameters, perhaps, and you see there's people that have joined, like within the parameters that you were talking about originally of cost and making it a reasonable endeavor, that it's been a really, really difficult project, but so it's fair to say that. So tell us where you're at, like in terms of you officially announced semantic at the conference, so tell me where you're at in terms of its availability, etc.
Availability to our customers, I believe, is in first quarter of next year. So that's in a month. And the reason for that is because we've had to migrate our customers over to AWS. But
Right.
in terms of the technology being available, we actually have it live in our demo environment today. And I'm excited to show it in a bit. I can show it right now. What do you think, Caroline?
Yeah, show. And then
Yeah,
if you've got any questions, jump in. I've got loads as always. But if you've
better
got any
show
questions,
than tell. So I'm going to be just showing pure semantic search first. And that's where, everybody knows this, but it bears reminding. This is the litigator in me. I'm like treating everyone like children. I'm like, okay, just remember. But lexical search is when you use keyword search. And so you have to use Booleans. You have to be very specific. If you even add in like an extra plural, you might kind of exclude results from that search and not be able to find stuff. Whereas semantic search, when we use that term, what we mean is concept-based search. So, for example, lexical search, say you look for any contracts with the material adverse effect in them. You are not going to pull out any contracts with material adverse change. But if you use semantic search, you'll pull that as well as any other contracts with something that is substantively the same as a material adverse effect clause. So you can see how that really just expands the scope of what you're able to get in your search results. And then, it just makes for a much more powerful experience. And the reason that it takes so long is because you obviously have to semantically index every file. So currently on our DMS, even to use the assistant, you have to select the files, or like with other vendors, you have to drag and drop and then wait for them to index those files, and then you can start asking questions. With semantic search, every single file that you upload into your DMS will automatically be semantically indexed. So you don't have to select certain files in order to query them, and you can ask questions across your entire repository. So for example, imagine being able to just type in the search bar, give me all the contracts from the last 5 years that contain a material adverse effect clause from the social media industry, and it'll actually be able to surface you. So truly powerful. And then there's a second part of it, AI answers, which I cannot do a live demo of today, but I will show a video. And that's where you're like, draft me a playbook using those contracts involving that clause, and then run it and give me an issues list. And you'll be able to sort of do that as well. So here you go. As you see, this is our development environment, sometimes unstable, but if it doesn't work, it's not my fault. I'm just going to put that disclaimer out there. Sports endorsement deal. So I'm sorry for that, guys. I don't know how to turn off my notifications. For Slack. Okay, sports endorsement deals. So as you see, we have the AI. You can search my name and subject. I'm going to search my entire repository, right, and see if I get anything. This is quite a common experience. Nope. Sorry. Maybe it said sports promotion agreement or sport endorsements deal or something like that. It's not going to pull it up. This is a really quick demo by the way, Caroline.
That's
But
fine.
semantic search, you use the AI search. I'm going to search for the same thing, sports endorsement deals. Oh, sorry, I have to type it. Here you go. Dang it.
It's not psychic.
It was still searching everything
That's
rather than
outrageous.
search. Here we go. So now, see, you're getting all these other ones. Celebrity endorsement agreement, sports endorsement agreement addendum. It doesn't say, here you go. Here's just capturing every time it said endorsement, and so on and so forth. Endorsement services, license and endorsement. So you're getting all these results that you wouldn't have otherwise known were there. And keep in mind, this is like a demo environment, so these are all files that we had to find, but imagine it's not like, it didn't say sports, it said athletic. Like you would be able to find that as well. So incredibly powerful. And then, like I said, it goes hand in hand. If you've profiled a number of these documents, there will be more fields available here for you to filter down to find the exact thing you're looking for. You can also then, click into one and you won't even have to wait for the load time, but like, I don't think I here. And then you can just ask AI and it'll pull up the assistant and you can query the document further.
Awesome.
Let's see if I'm asking too much of our development environment here. No, and then you can be like, who are the parties involved in this agreement? Off you go. So it's really ambient AI. This is what we're talking about, that seamless experience where you're using AI kind of like unthinkingly every day. Here, usage limit. Again, development environment. Probably should have tested that beforehand, but normally it would work if we were out of this. So, that's the first part. And then I will go ahead and show you what you can do. So still keying off of this sports endorsement example. Let me maximize this and share a different view. Say you've found those and now you want to use our AI answers function, which is to ask a question of those documents and ask it to perform a workflow. So this is Scott Kelly, our head of AI. He demoed this video during Inspire. So AI Answers isn't available to me in its development state. So that's why I have to play this video.
That's cool.
So this is the second pillar of what we consider to be AI search. And that is the ability to not just get search results, but to get answers. We think this is really the unlock that many of us have been waiting for in bringing agents and bringing AI to the DMS. And we're happy to say that as of today, we have this in our development environment. So I'm going to show it to you. And here I am. I'm going to go ahead and click Ask AI.
His works.
And then I'm going to ask this question right here, which is kind of complex. Find one or more examples of how sports endorsement agreements handle fees for late payments. Then give me a detailed bullet point playbook for handling that situation based on those examples. Oh, and by the way, make sure to cite the document ID of the document we relied on. I'm adding that extra instruction. You won't have to add that in the future. We're gonna improve this over the next week or two, where citations will be automatic, but including it here. So I go ahead and do that, and I simply, and you'll notice here, I've selected 0 files, right? It's somewhere in the DMS. I think maybe there's an answer. I don't know. I go ahead, I hit search, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, how we're going to actually add the thinking trace here so you can see as it reasons through that search query. Right now, you just kind of have this loading, and then it comes back and it outputs the answer. Now, this is pretty powerful. I didn't know where in the DMS this answer was, but here I have an example pulled directly from the DMS, the exact quote of the late payment clause, and then a little draft playbook based on that endorsement agreement, and also provided as a citation. This is the thing that in talking to so many of our users over the last 3 years, they've been waiting for. And we're proud to say that we'll be launching it to our customers very, very soon. I'll talk about when in just a moment.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.
Not in the flesh, but in spirit. So that's sort of the two pieces of our AI search experience, is being able to pull those precedents, and then also being able to, without knowing what you're looking, traverse the entire repository to find answers. So I think day to day, this is going to be really transformative for attorneys.
Yeah. So, and he said about the citations, so they're available now on the or not quite yet.
I believe citations are going to be available using the assistant, but there was like one. Yeah, it's basically available this month or next.
Okay, because I think that will give people really, will give people the reassurance. I mean, it's incredible. They need the reassurance of being able to go and check, just in terms of that as we go on that journey of adoption and trust. And it's important to be able to go and find it, isn't it? You can just go manually and find it, but I guess from a speed perspective, to be able to just quickly reference and just go, okay, that's real, it's not made up.
It's like it's speed, and it's better client service as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have some firms that have 1,000 attorneys, right? You don't know what somebody else is working on, and precedents are like the gold for like every firm, right? It's what they don't allow you to take when you leave the firm because they're so important. But being able to actually unlock the power of everything else that all your peers and colleagues have done, that's great, right? You can now access their stuff, assuming you don't have it locked down. But I always like to use an example when I was a litigator and I was facing this case where, for those of you who know anything about it's boring but interesting but boring, but like we had a class of preferred shareholders who were converting their stock to common, which would have diluted the common shareholders, and they did it without a separate shareholder vote for the common. And so under Delaware corporate law, generally you must hold a separate shareholder vote. Otherwise, it's illegal and then you owe damages. So in this case, the damages would have been hundreds of millions of dollars. So the client came to us and they're like, should we settle? And we're like, looks pretty bad. Looks like you should have had that shareholder vote, and there's very narrow exceptions in which you can't. But then I was like, when they drafted this, certainly they must have kept this in mind, and certainly that's why they must have done this in the first place. So I started looking through all the corporate charters, and sure enough, there are a lot of opt-outs in the Delaware Code, and they had opted out of needing to have a separate shareholder vote in their charter in like 2013 or something. And this wasn't like we were straight up representing the company. I think they could have just told us, but we were representing like a big investor in the company. So, for some reason, like nobody keyed us into that. So selling for, a few million rather than hundreds. And I think that makes a huge difference. But did I could have just asked that question in that search bar, been like, at any point, did we opt out of anything that said that we needed a separate shareholder vote? And I probably would have been able to find a response, or at least search the corporate organizational documents and give me a list of all the opt-outs from the Delaware Code. And then I could have, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But instead it was like a 3 a.m., like, super torturous, heart-burning process to try to find this answer. And so like for the client, if I had that available to me, we would have billed much less hours on that. But more importantly, we would have been able to come to the right answer sooner. And I was like, as a lawyer, sometimes whether you're corporate or litigation, paranoia is your best friend. I mean, if I hadn't gotten super paranoid before we were setting up this meeting, God knows, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
It just fills me with just horror and dread, the thought of it and memory of it. But it's amazing. I mean, just goes to show that needle in the haystack, that can be exactly what this is about, right? That's exactly what this can be about. I mean, it can just be about drafting something, but it can also be about finding it. In that vein, it can also be, the worry can be about finding stuff that you don't want people to find about, right? Like, so the whole point about semantic search, you couldn't talk about the benefits, which are huge, without talking about how you ward against people finding out the C-suite's salaries or whatever, like in some documents. So talk us through, you must be engaged with firms all the time talking about this, like how do, and I'm sure you've got answers. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean the NetDocs is first and foremost a compliance company, so all the same governance permissions are in place. A user is not able to access something that they shouldn't, not only from a conflicts perspective, but also from that DLP stuff. And there are other protocols you can implement, like PII, PHI, personally identifying information, and then personal health information, where that's also locked down and you can't copy and paste that, or like you can't see it depending on your permissions. So there's definitely a lot of different ways that you can maintain that level of control over access dependent on the user.
Okay. Yeah, that's good, because I think that was definitely, that I've spoken to firms where that's still a concern, like and maybe not so much with NetDocs, but and maybe not even with legal tech specific, but like there's been concerns about, if we start opening up our DMS, then how do we have any control? Like it has to respect those restrictions. Otherwise it could be super dangerous, right? It should be super dangerous from a deal perspective. All of the things that we've built up over years and decades, and like in terms of confidentiality and all of that kind of stuff, in terms of deals and privacy.
Speaking of that, there's one firm that's actually like the auto profiling will be, or AI profiling will be especially useful because their entire DMS is locked down. You don't have access to any matters that you're not working on. Right. And so how do you find the right precedent if it's completely locked down, right? So they've built this separate infrastructure where you can search just the profile attributes or the title of documents, but you can't actually view them until you ask for permission from admin. And so, but they haven't like consistently profiled all those documents, right? So when they implement AI profiling, it's going to just change that experience, because now the user is going to be able to really search much more accurately for precedents on that separate infrastructure, locate the right agreement based on those, hydrated metadata sets, and then finally be able to find the right precedent. So that's their like number one focus right now, is this profiling exercise in order to unlock that value.
Yeah. I spoke to our 30th. I spoke to more on the knowledge front, but they were talking about currently they're really focused on that curated data set. That's still some firms focus. And it's interesting. I haven't really spoken to firms about, I remember years and years ago talking about need to know, and everyone was like, that's never going to happen. Like that you're only going to be able to access documents that you actually need to. I don't actually, I'll be honest, I haven't really tracked where firms are on that scale of things. Like,
I don't know, man. There's a lot of scrutiny on billable hours now. So if it's like your attorneys must reinvent the wheel, all things need to know, I feel like your clients aren't going to be particularly happy about that.
Where are you? So we've obviously got in-house people on the call. I know you work very much with in-house and with law firms. Is it possible to say like where the most excitement or demand is going to be for profiling and semantic search, or has there been any surprises on that front?
Do you mean like are firms more excited about it, or in-house counsel more excited?
In terms of where, so one thing that I'm finding so interesting right now in terms of the in-house law firm dynamic is in-house teams are, so I'm just throwing this out there off the top of my head, I'm sorry, but it's just so interesting seeing, big corporates. Like corporate is really new tech is really changing the dynamic in terms of what in-house teams are capable of, right? And and seeing their excitement, it's really cool. I think it's something that but I wondered if that's relevant here, if there's been some excitement in-house about it.
100%. I think the excitement is equal, if not greater, because I think in-house counsel specifically deal with the same kind of documents over and over again, or like are reusing precedents over and over again, and really looking to create efficiencies. They're not tied to the billable hour. So for them, this profiling and AI search makes complete sense. In fact, a new legal solutions director will be joining, or has joined us. His name is Brandel. I'm sure you'll work with him on future webinars, but he spent 8 years at Freshfields in capital markets and M&A, and then actually worked in-house in a logistics company, I believe on M&A transactions. But they were using NetDocs, and like now that he's getting more familiar with our technology, having joined this side, he's like, wow, this would have been a game changer at that logistics company. Didn't even know this was, possible, but he'd already started using the assistant and saw the value in that. And when he saw this, like, I think it's equally applicable, right? Finding the right precedent to do something, cutting down the amount of time that you need to do that, and then, being able to trigger workflows or review flows, setting the right, knowing what you need for like further approvals and setting that up the chain. This can all be really facilitated by this auto profiling exercise.
Yeah. And then in terms of, they could potentially do more in-house and go to law firms for the really big strategic work. You don't know, and actually it very much depends on the in-house team. But it's kind of exciting about, it can speed things up for them. It can make things more discoverable, because that's always a problem in-house, right? Like that they've got potentially, it's not always been easy to find documents. Like actually, if you've got something that can help speed them up, then that may sort of change the type of work that they're doing. I mean, there's a lot of sophistication in-house, particularly perhaps in some of the ones that are listening in.
Yeah, a lot of in-house teams don't even have like a DMS.
No, I
But
know.
now,
Yeah.
or they have one and nobody uses it, but this might be an incentive for them to start storing their documents there, because they can utilize these efficiencies.
Yeah.
And some in-house teams can be just as big as a law firm. They're basically internal law firms, and so they kind of need the same technology. And again, they don't have in mind some efficiencies and being able to reduce the hours spent on something, or on external counsel. I didn't say that though. The firms listening, I didn't say that. I see we have someone from Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, I'm sure, has a huge in-house team.
We're just sort of starting to wrap up. So we've touched on agentic, and obviously, I mean, there's already it's early days, but there's already some exciting stuff coming down the track. And so presumably, and also you've got MCP, where everyone's sort of excited and still trying to work out what impact it will have for them. So in terms of the things that we've talked about, so one thing with MCP that people always try to explain to me is that, so MCP, everyone will know, it's like the kind of, someone described it as the USB of AI, which I also quite liked, or an API of AI, but that it doesn't create something more. So when you connect different systems, it doesn't create more than is there. So actually, if you haven't got semantic search, then it won't be able to do tasks that require semantic search. And so I guess this, in terms of when we're now looking down the track at agentic AI and some of the stuff that we're going to be able to use, this is going to be quite significant for that.
This is so funny. Yesterday I was on a call with our engineers or our product team, and I was like, someone explain MCP to me, like, but actually, because I know what it stands for.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it was the same thing. I'm like, it's a fancy AI, or I even took it down to another level, different level. I was like, it's a dongle. It's a dongle. And they're like, yes, essentially, Jen. But the way that it was explained to me is that it's just a standard formatting sort of thing, so that agents can discover what tools are available for a particular service. I'm pulling up my notes now. And also, like, if you update an API, then that breaks that access to the tools. But if you update an MCP server, every single time the large language model will ping the MCP about what's available, so it doesn't break that connection. So I guess it's just a lot faster and a lot more intelligent than the current system we have of APIs today. And yeah, we are building an MCP layer. We have a program called ND Connect. Our current partners are Harvey, Legora, and CoCounsel. But basically, when MCP comes live, no matter what vendor you're using, Harvey, Legora, CoCounsel, on their end, you'll be able to pull documents from NetDocs seamlessly to use their automations. And when semantic search is available, you'll be able to use semantic search to find those precedents. So I think that's truly transformative. Because right now there's the toggle tax. You have to like first find the right documents, drag and drop them into that environment. NDConnect shortens that, where you can just upload your documents directly now from NetDocs, but it's still based on like you having to locate the files first. When the MCP and semantic search comes out, you can just search for those documents pretty seamlessly and without having to do the drag and drop, which is great.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I mean, it's going to be. I think it's going to be amazing. Yes, and I mean, you and I have talked before about, everyone wants to be the platform. Like there's a big battle about, but actually it'd be really interesting to see. This is a conversation definitely for another time, but like it'd be interesting to see with MCP whether that makes it irrelevant or like actually we're just going to have this great interoperability that we've been talking about for a long time.
I don't think everybody really wants to build the infrastructure necessary to semantically index every file.
No.
Like people are like, why are you making semantic search such a big deal? I'll just drag 10,000 documents into Harvey or Lagora and then just like ask them to search for the right thing in there. It's like, right. But what's your upload time every time you do that? Like, how practical is it? And then, what about governance and permissions? Are you respecting those? And then when you get the work product, are you saving that into your system of record or where does that go? Right. So, as much as I think when I first joined NetDocs even a year and a half ago, someone was like, why do we even need DMSs anymore? And I'm like, well, I think just as having someone who practiced for quite a long time, I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. Maybe I'm just behind on the times, but especially when we've, invested in this semantic indexing effort, I really think that NetDocs and whoever, may decide to do the same thing as well will still provide a lot of value to the end user.
I think that I think there's a lot of change and challenge and around integration, and I think that it's just a big uphill journey for a lot of people right now, so they're asking a lot of questions about a lot of things, and everyone's looking at cost and
having their tech stack
rethinking like, right, do we have to reimagine everything? I think I think it's right that everyone's sort of thinking about stuff, but I do think that this, I think that not having to upload right, I mean, there's quite a lot of documents that you could upload, but like not having to do that, just being able to search in the way that we started out this conversation talking about Google, just having that, building that ability for fee earners to be able to practice in that seamless way. I think we're used to it in our private lives. I think this is the thing, like with legal tech versus what we do in our own lives. I think this is where you have different experiences that can cause UX, that can cause issues around people don't want to use it. If it doesn't look like it does in my own time, then I don't want to use it. I think that's been some of the issues perhaps. So I think, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. We'll see. Q1, everybody. I'm excited. I wish I last practiced about 2 years ago. And that was before ChatGPT came along. And I, even sitting here today with these tools, I'm like, wow, if I had had this at my fingertips when I was practicing, I could have been that much more effective. And I'm not even talking about being efficient, but like I said, for that example I gave, be able to find the right answer, a high degree of confidence. I think that's what AI will really allow us to do at the end of the day. I mean, that's where I'm most interested as someone who practiced and still consider myself an attorney. Is finding the right answer and providing top level service to the client. That's my value add, even more so than the efficiency aspect of it.
Well, look, that was great. Thank you. And thank you to people listening in. Appreciate you joining us. And that was great to see that in action.
Yeah.
I have talked to you a lot this year and it was fantastic to talk about semantic search. You and I said we're going to do it and we've done it.
Yeah, finally. And the AI search thing, I don't know, something with my access, but it is live as well. I wish I could have demoed it, but it's you'll see it a lot. We'll be trumpeting our triumph next year a lot. So don't expect this to be the last time. Pleasure
right.
talking to you as always, Caroline.
Always. Yeah. Thank you so much. Take care. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.